So yes, thank you everybody for joining. So again, my name is Zachary Ames. I'm a program support analyst with Battelle Education and help Heather Sherman run the Ohio STEM Learning Network. Incredibly excited about this year's Design Challenge, which is based around infrastructure. It's the hashtag STEM Builds Design and Entrepreneurship Challenge. And very happy to welcome Noah and Carol onto our team. They have been incredible helps and they work at the Metro Early College High School. They will be kind of running through Design Challenge 101 logistics today and kind of opening up a space for educators and the other partners on board to kind of talk about what the Design Challenge is and kind of how you can get your feet underneath of you. So without any further notice, I'll pass it over to Carol, or I'll pass it over to Noah or Carol. Also, if you guys wouldn't mind introducing yourself in the chat, feel free just to give your name, the school or organization you're with, and then your experience, the grade level that you work with, and then your experience level with the Design Challenge.
Actually, Zach, would you mind if we just did that with audio? If people just introduce themselves verbally?
Yes, that'd be perfect as well.
Okay. All right.
Awesome. So I can kind of bounce around the room and do that. I know there's quite a few partners on the line as well. So we'll go ahead and start with Mary. If you want to go, Mary Schneider, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I am Mary Schneider. I'm director of the Central Ohio STEM Hub. And so here to support everybody as they take on this challenge. It's a good one this year. I'm excited for it.
Awesome. Kelly, if you wouldn't mind hopping off, or Kelly Geyer Evans, if you wouldn't mind hopping off and introducing yourself.
Good afternoon, all. Kelly Geyer Evans. I'm a senior STEM relationship manager at the Ohio STEM Learning Network in Battelle. Nice to see everyone.
Awesome. And then Kelly Bigger, would you mind hopping off and introducing yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having us. I'm Kelly Bigger, and I'm at the Young Entrepreneur Institute.
Wonderful. Thank you. Liz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Nuskin. I'm a consultant with the Ohio After School Network, bringing entrepreneur ed to kids across Ohio.
Wonderful. And then we'll move into our educators that are here on the call. I know there's just a few of you, and we will have a few joining a little bit later. Christy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Christy Venny, Dublin City Schools. I'm a district administrator, and I oversee K-12 career education.
Awesome. Brian, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Brian Hoffner. I'm actually out in Arizona, and I'm one of the directors for the Arizona STEM Community of Practice. So I work for the Maricopa County School Superintendent's Office, and we partner with schools all over Arizona to help share great ideas. And so here to learn.
Wonderful. Jennifer, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I'm Jennifer Everett. I am a STEM teacher at the primary building K-3 in Piqua, Ohio, Piqua City Schools.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, a little choppy, but I think we got it. Thank you. And last, I believe on the call is William Hayes. Would you mind introducing yourself?
Hello, I'm William Hayes. I'm a school level administrator, assistant principal with Toledo Public at Hawkins STEM Academy in Toledo, Ohio. And I'm going to be assisting with the team on the OSLN Challenge.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for attending. And I'll pass it over to Noah and Carol to get started. As I said, this will be recorded and we will be sharing this on our website later this year to kind of support the other teachers that are unfortunately unable to make it. And it looks like our first slide is actually going to be an introduction of some of our partners today. So Kelly and Liz, if you guys want to kind of hop off mute, give a brief introduction of what you guys do with your organizations and kind of how you're further affiliated with the Ohio STEM Learning Network and our Design Challenge.
That'd be great. Hey, Zach, can I share my screen? We did put like 4 or 5 slides together.
Happy to. Let me make you co-host here.
Great. All right, Kelly, why don't you get started while I get this into, there we go. Okay. Well, I'll start talking about the Ohio After School Network, or OAN. So we're a statewide organization that knows that kids learn all the time, not just when they're in school. So we work with those out of school time professionals in camps, libraries, YMCA's, faith-based programs, and others. And we feel like entrepreneur education is great during the school day and after school. Kids are interested in and excited about entrepreneurship. So let's bring it to them when we can. I'm going to let Kelly tell you about YEI.
Great. Thank you, Liz. And I'm Kelly Bigger at the Young Entrepreneur Institute. We're located in Northeast Ohio and work throughout Ohio and actually the nation. So we are in the K through 12 space, and we believe that every child should learn and experience entrepreneurship, and that's whether or not they become an entrepreneur, because it's just that entrepreneurial mindset that's so important for success for them for life. When you think about creativity or problem solving, critical thinking, grit, resilience, empathy, just all those great skills that are out there for the kids to grasp hold of. So here's a little snippet of things we do. I'll talk about the Inspire Conference in a minute and the Power Hour. We do pitch challenges. We'll chat with that. We have a lot of distance learning resources. We provide an experience for kids to sell at farmers markets and local markets in the Northeast Ohio area, and are happy to help you with that in your area. We have a speakers bureau. We have games. So just a plethora of resources on our website for you to look at.
So we'll put that website in the chat box when we're not presenting. So we just love this picture. This is maybe you guys in the news, a girl that wanted to be able to hug her grandparents, but couldn't because of COVID. And we just feel like it really shows how kids are entrepreneurial. They're problem solvers. And it also shows, I think, how we all need to be problem solvers during these uncertain times to do the things that we want and need to do that are important to us. So just love that picture. And here are some of the entrepreneurial mindsets that have been identified by our partner Venture Lab. And I think you can see, looking at that, how closely that aligns with STEM thinking. And then also how the design cycle works with entrepreneurship, identifying a problem, coming up with a solution, testing it, sharing it, iterating on it. STEM and entrepreneur education just align so nicely.
And so we have here at YEI developed a pitch toolkit that is a very light lift. It's just a 5-session toolkit. We'll put the link in the chat. It's free of charge for anybody. Super flexible. You know, feel free to take what you like and leave what you don't like, but it includes pitch videos, tools with the curriculum, exercises, worksheets. They are fillable online. And we have video taping tips and lots of pitch tips, and it has a guide on how to facilitate as well as how to host, and then blank worksheets and forms. So anybody is welcome to dip into that. And Liz and I and our team at YEI would be happy to do, free Zoom practice sessions with anybody who wants to work on pitching, giving, productive, constructive feedback in a positive way. And so we are happy to help in any way needed, free of charge.
All right, and then OAN and YEI are each hosting pitch challenges. They're virtual videotaped pitches, 30 to 90 seconds. OAN's is statewide, and that will kick off in November, run through March. And then YEI's is for, I don't know how many counties in Northeast Ohio, Kelly, a whole bunch of counties.
21 counties in Northeast Ohio, and it actually kicked off October 4th and ends February 25th. So plenty of time to join lots of pitch challenges for these kids.
Yeah, so if your kids are making pitch videos for their design challenge, they might as well make one for our pitch challenges as well. So here are some of the free resources that we have. We talked about some of these already. We have a monthly professional learning community call. This morning, we just had one with Geography Growth Partnership. We talked about how they added entrepreneurship to their remote edX grant. We have other curricula, guest speakers, and lots of other good stuff available. And we got some events coming.
Absolutely. So our next event is what we call Power Hours. These used to be our in-person retreats that we did in Cleveland, Ohio, but now that we've all gone virtual, we'd love anyone to join us. So It's usually the third Thursday of the month at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And typically we sort of pick a topic and then we do 3 or 4 resources on that topic for you, and then an educator or two that has used those resources. So we've done leadership, creativity, social entrepreneurship, empathy, and those are all on our website if you wish to browse through them. But our next one is weaving entrepreneurship into every strand of your curriculum. So you think of science or math or social studies or language, anything, really entrepreneurship, as you guys all know, can be weaved into any of those pieces. So feel free to join us for that. And then our Inspire conference is coming up, and it is a virtual professional conference, and it's for educators, program directors, funders, anyone who wants to focus on the entrepreneurial mindset for kids, students in K through 12. So you could join us on November 4th through the 9th, and we have keynote speakers, panel discussions, and workshops. Our featured speaker this year are AJ Giuliani. I don't know if anybody follows him, but I love his podcast that he's got out there. John Spencer, who is a professor and an author, and Marcia Tate, who's an educational consultant and co-founder of Developing Minds, Inc. and an author. So they will be keynote speakers. Unfortunately, some of the times are in the afternoon, which may not work for some of you, but we will have recordings of those speakers and also extra sessions on Monday and Tuesday. And the panel discussion on Thursday is improving student assessment. So I'll put the link in. Liz and I will throw some links in there, but free, and love anybody to join us. Feel free to pass along to any friends, family, colleagues that might be interested.
Thanks, Kelly. And then here's our contact information. We'd love to talk with you about helping your students' pitches be effective and entrepreneurship. And if you have any out of school time programs or you want to start some in your district or school, let us know. Thanks for the opportunity, Zach. And we'll put those in the chat box.
Anytime. Thank you guys so much for hopping on and discussing your shared impact with the Design Challenge. Yeah, as they were talking about, lots of different pitch challenges, and anything that works with an OSLN pitch challenge is also capable of being entered into either one of those challenges. So it's a great way to kind of kill multiple birds with a single stone in your students' pitches that they come up with. So thank you guys again for all of your fantastic work and fantastic partnership. And we'll also share all of those resources with all of the people that are here and unable to attend today also. Perfect. And without anything else, we'll go ahead and pass it over to Noah and Carol. Have you guys get started?
Yeah, I think a couple more people have joined. So if you joined after we started, if you could introduce yourself, that would be awesome.
Awesome.
I can start. Hi, everyone. My name's Jen Reed. Sorry, I was driving home from school, so I could join you today. I'm the co-director of the Dayton STEM Hub, and I'm also supporting the teachers in my building in the high school who are engaged with the challenge. And since they couldn't be here today, I said I would.
Awesome.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen. Kelly Noikis. Sorry, I probably butchered your name, but if you wouldn't mind hopping off and introducing yourself. In a few moments. No worries, Kelly. If you're not able to hop off mute, Kelly, feel free to just go ahead and pop it in the chat there as well. That's a perfectly fine way to introduce yourself. And we'll move over to Cynthia. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Okay. I'm in my car, so I apologize. I'm Cynthia Medansky. I'm instructional coach at Hawkins STEM Academy in Toledo. Last year, my students participated at McKinley STEM. So we're looking to do a 7th grade class at Hawkins this year, and I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. And I think that is all for now. I did get a few other messages, so we might have some other people rolling in later, but I will keep the presenters posted on who those are, and we can go ahead and move forward.
Great.
I can go ahead and introduce myself.
Yeah.
So my name is Noah Grissett. I've been teaching for 9 years, 3 years at Metro. Metro is an early college STEM school. It's closely affiliated with OSU and Battelle, and there's lots of partnerships there. I'm a high school and college credit plus English teacher. I've been a part of the Metro Design Challenge Committee, so we're working on building out the curriculum for the OSLN Design Challenge at Metro and in some schools in the surrounding area. And then I'm also currently conducting research on project-based learning and teacher beliefs around the effectiveness of project-based learning. And then when I'm not teaching, I love rock climbing and paddle boarding.
Great. So I'm thrilled to have all of you here today. I am Carol Van Fossen. I've been teaching many years. I can't put a number on it. I've been here, there, everywhere, at the community college level, Metro Middle School, Metro High School. But this is my 14th year at Metro. So therefore entering into my 14th Design Challenge as a school here. And yes, Noah and I have been working to create the benchmarks and the requirements for our Design Challenge this year. I am a part of the math department, and for fun, I am a yoga instructor, a bicycle enthusiast, and I didn't write this down, but an enthusiastic mother of 3 grown-up daughters who are an incredible lot of fun now. So that's kind of where we are today. We're going to give you, well, first of all, if we can talk about our norms for today. So these are the norms we came up with, and I'd like for you all to jump in if you think there's anything else that we should add to norms for today. But I think number 1, be open to new ideas. And I realize a lot of you sound like you have some experience with Design Challenge, but for anyone that's new to this or new to any of the ideas, just kind of reflect on accepting those and thinking about how they would land in your practice. We'll start on time and we'll end on time. So we'll be in here until 5 o'clock. Be an active participant. We plan to do a breakout room possibly, but we may, given the small group that we have here today, keep this as a full group session when we get to that sharing part, and then monitor your own airtime as always, allowing everyone to have the opportunity to share. So with that, would anyone like to add any norms to our list? Okay.
I just want
Sounds
to add one more thing too. I know there are people coming off of work and things like that and driving in cars and listening. We appreciate that you're taking your time out of your already busy day, so you don't have to feel bad at all about the hectic or chaotic transition into here. So no worries there.
Well said, yes. In fact, I contemplated starting this session with a little bit of deep breathing, which is something we do every morning at Metro. But you can do that on your own, just taking a couple of deep breaths, roll your shoulders back and settle in and relax. Yeah, we're just really happy that you're here and that you are invested in this idea of Design Challenge. So our schedule for today, the 4 major points that we're going to hit are, first of all, what is a design challenge? So we'll get a little bit of input from you on your perspectives on design challenge, and then we'll share our ideas. And then why are design challenges important, both from the student perspective and from the teacher's perspective? How does a design challenge support student learning? And then finally, we'll introduce the Battelle Design Challenge and have some time for reflection on how that looks in your practice or in your school, or as you support other teachers implementing these challenges.
One thing I want to add as well, this first session is going to be very sort of like overview of what the Design Challenge is, specifically what the OSLN Design Challenge is, and some background information there. In the coming weeks is when we'll get a little bit more into like what that actually looks like in the classroom. So don't get discouraged if you don't get a lot of information about what it looks like in the classroom this session. We're definitely going to be getting into that in the coming weeks.
Right. Yeah, today is big picture. So starting off with this essential question, what is a design challenge? So this is where we wanted maybe some ideas from all of you. In your mind, in your heart, in your practice, what do you see a design challenge as being? And feel free to unmute and just jump right in or type in the chat box if you prefer. To you, what is a design challenge in your school, in your practice as a teacher?
This is Jen. I would say it is something that is problem-based. And so students are usually trying to figure something out, and there's some sort of constraints to it. So sometimes the time is the constraint, like it's a really quick design challenge. It can last, a class period, and then other times like this, it's overarching. It's going to take a lot of time. They're going through the engineering design process, but there's still constraints around it. So they have to work within those.
Anyone else care to share? What is the design challenge?
I know we had a few people placed in the chat. Jennifer Everett said that a design challenge to me is when a student creates an idea or a product to solve a problem.
Okay. Would anyone else like to share their thoughts on design challenge? Okay, so with that in mind, just know that the design challenge that we talk about is one that we can discuss as a group, is one that you can add your 2 cents to in any way as we go through. So looking at the quote at the bottom and keeping in mind what a design challenge is, know that it is a way to define and solve complex problems, much as what was mentioned. And I think the other important thing here in that first bullet point is the problems exist in the community. So design challenges you can think of as a way to connect your community to the problem. And that's one of the key elements. Also, a well-defined problem with a loosely defined solution. So kind of that open-ended opportunity for students to be creative in their solutions. A model of how problems are solved in business and engineering, and really in many other facets, right? There's a problem, we come together, we collaborate and come up with solutions. And so, just that connection again of community and the problem. And then finally, open-ended with many solutions. So directing toward teachers, the tip on the side there is that idea of, rather than teaching perhaps in a traditional present material way, could you, the next time you introduce a new topic, start it with the problem that could be solved by the content that you're teaching. And the quote at the bottom then, the best business leaders didn't find a magic solution to solve their problems. They built processes and leveraged tools to find success. And that kind of embodies our goal here as a design challenge, allowing and supporting our students as they build processes to solve problems.
Yeah, and I just want to speak a little bit into that second bullet point, a well-defined problem with a loosely defined solution. I think a lot of times teachers, and I can imagine administrators as well, want to define every element of the process that a student needs to do in order to show their learning or to demonstrate their knowledge. But sometimes there are situations in which students need to be able to show their learning in new ways that we haven't even that we can't nail down or that we can't define. So it's really important to have that well-defined problem, like start with something that's well-defined, but then let the students sort of go where they want with those solutions.
Great. Okay. So in starting, and this again, more directed toward teachers, maybe the first thing a teacher might do is to implement some simple design challenges that already exist. So these are 2 resources, one being Edutopia, one being DIY Classroom. These links will be available to teachers, but they're just some simple ones. And if I just open one, or no, if you would just open one, we can look at some of the ideas. So always hands-on, always building, and then starting with problem solutions problems to create solutions to. And so these are, I think these were defined as low-cost design challenges for your classroom. Maybe you've seen some of them before, particularly if you're in administration and supporting many teachers with design challenges. But these are just a nice little launching point for starting to use design challenges in your classroom. Yep. All right, so now moving on to why design challenges are important. So we wanted to give this to you from a teacher perspective and also from the student perspective. So you can see here, these are maybe 3 of the things that we believe are most important from the teacher perspective. To really foster engagement, to take, as some of my students have said before, it's not so boring when we do it this way. So to create engagement and interest, and to also allow students to connect to their what they know, and to be able to support their solutions with what they know, and then learn what they need to know to completely find a good solution. I think one of the most important things too is bullet point number 2, connecting a student to their community. And we do that through the problem itself, and then also through using community partners when we create a design challenge, bringing speakers in to talk with the students, having having community leaders in that particular area come in when students are building prototypes. But again, just really connecting the students to their community and to a solution that their community needs. And then finally, for teachers, and this is, perhaps some of you have heard this too, when design challenges get started, teachers sometimes feel like this is just one more thing that I need to do. But kind of shifting that mindset to, instead of something else, thinking about it as being something new. And then a little tip there on the side, based in the OTES rubric, knowledge of students being one of the components, these design challenges allow teachers to really support knowledge of students by creating assignments and mini design challenges to support that knowledge of students. And then again, for teachers, thinking about design challenges, what community partners do you already know that could come in and support you in the implementation of a design challenge? Some of the comments when we talk with teachers about design challenges are listed here. So I'll give you a moment just to read through those. And in a moment, we're going to share a video with you that was recorded here at Metro High School, talking about what teachers here at the high school level have said about the design challenges implemented here at Metro. At this point though, do any of you have anything to add here? What have you heard teachers saying about design challenge?
This is Jen. I was just going to say, I feel like the design challenges are the kind of the answer to when are we going to use what we're learning in class today. So even if it's a simple like marshmallow design challenge and you're just trying to do some practice with teamwork and communication, but all the way to, exploring a problem that is going to require the students to learn the math that that they need to learn, it really helps them see how they can apply what they're studying, and so school doesn't feel like something that's being done to them. It seems like something that they're a part of.
Thank you. Would anyone else like?
Yeah, one of my favorite comments from a teacher, we were working with an ag teacher who had this aha where she was like, oh, I think her sister or her husband or someone worked for a company that was doing something similar. And so like she was able to make that connection of like, oh my gosh, this is what he does for, or she does for a job and a career. Like I'm really bringing that authentic learning to my students that they might someday do in it was a small rural community.
Great. Thank you.
So I'm going to add something in. I know I'm the outsider, but I think that as educators, whether we're teachers or whether we're principals, we feed off of the energy of our students. And when the students are energized, the teacher gets reinvigorated and they get reconnected to the purpose of why they came into this. And so when students see a direct connection between what they're learning and improving their community, improving their schools, making a connection to a professional, whatever level it is, their energy is infectious. And so I think it's kind of a snowball from there.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
A couple follow-up questions too. How many of you have done a design challenge before? If I could just, I don't know, maybe hands or thumbs up. Okay, so about half of you. And then another follow-up question I have, and this is just to get a greater sense for Carol and I as we move forward. How many of you are doing this whole school, like your whole school is doing a design challenge? And then how many of you, yeah, so I'll start with that. How many of you are like this is a whole school or whole grade band initiative? No, so this is just individual. So for most of you, it's individual classes, individual teachers implementing the design challenge in their classes. Okay.
I'm looking to systematize it in my school district in Dublin City Schools.
Great.
And at the STEM school, the Dayton STEM school, we're doing it across the 11th grade in at least 3 of the classes that I know: math, government, and our English class, which is technical reading and writing.
Okay, great.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. I appreciate that.
Jen, was that you that just shared?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no, that's okay. Are you doing that collaborative, like cross curriculum?
Yeah.
Cross course. Okay, great.
Yeah,
Good.
we have team planning time, so it's 3 of our teachers working together.
Great. Thank you. And then next, okay. And then here are just some other teacher thoughts that came through. We talked, with Noah and I both teaching at the high school level, we leveraged a lot of help from elementary school teachers that implement design challenges on a regular basis. And so we talked to them a little bit about the idea of leadership. One of the models that we found was that they use the older elementary school students who have completed design challenges to help teach the kindergarten and first grade students how they work, how to be creative, how to brainstorm ideas. And then the suggestion was, if you're just starting out at the elementary level, perhaps leveraging those natural leaders in your room. And I thought that was a great idea. And honestly, we sort of do the same thing at the high school level. We use some of the upper level students to support the freshmen as they come in. And then again, kind of looking for those natural leaders in the room. And then 2 other pieces of advice from teachers to all teachers is to implement some of those mini design challenges so students get used to the protocols and students get used to this way of learning. And then finally, this last one, and I think Noah hit on this a little bit ago, avoid confirming or denying ideas. And that's so hard for us, particularly I'm a math teacher, so that's what the students want to know immediately. Is this right? Is this the right way? Is this the right thing? And just really leaving things open-ended is advice that comes from teachers who regularly implement design challenges. And then the next thing we have here is a video fresh off the press from Metro about design challenges. So it's about a 3-minute video that we'll just listen to and maybe reflect on a little bit.
those are projects that you do, you know, at the beginning of the year, and it's a group project, and you're working with your group to find a solution to a problem. And it can be a really broad problem. You know, I think we had one, how do we create less waste in the world? That was a really great experience, just learning how to work with a group and learning how to go through the process of solving a problem, even if it's a really broad one.
So design thinking is a big deal now. When Metro started, design thinking was not something that was quite so commonplace, right? The engineering design process, this idea of having problems that you looked at and came up with solutions, was something that engineers did, but it wasn't necessarily common. And which I think is so interesting, because I think that makes Metro's founders very ahead of their time in so many ways. So design challenges really are this opportunity for students to look at an existing issue in the world and to work to see it with an empathy lens and perspective, to try to understand why it's a problem, and then to work through a process or a cycle, whatever you want to call it, around design thinking to come up with a meaningful solution. Right. So just kind of in and of itself, that process is fantastic. And again, a really helpful life skill. Here's an issue. How do I get to a solution? Right. So I think that that's one of the pieces of design thinking and design processes that's really, really valuable.
So there are a lot of reasons that we push design challenges. So we can go on for days about the academic reasons, but there's also a deeper reason, you know, the personal reasons. Do we want to teach students and give them an opportunity to understand what it means to invest and empathize with their own communities? The benefit of students doing design challenges is that over the years, they have rehearsed being active, and they've rehearsed being engaged in problems they see in the world. And I think so many times when young people or older people go through life never having had to step out and do something, you know, you can be comfortable watching things happen in your world. But, you know, hopefully through this process, you know, our students have practiced engaging and addressing the problems of their community often enough that it doesn't feel like it's stepping outside the box. It actually feels normal to them.
So just kind of realizing, and I think that last statement made by Anthony Alston is just so important, is the repeated practice of design challenge. So it just becomes normal, just becomes something that's part of our students' everyday thought process when they encounter a problem, whether it's at school in an academic class or in their life. So just wanted to share that with you. Then we'll go on to talking about design challenge from the student side, where the student benefits as we go. So why design challenges are important for students? I think one of the first things that we think about is it allows the students to be creative. So again, that well-defined problem with a loosely defined solution, you know, sky's the limit. I always tell the kids, what do you think you can do? What do you think maybe we could come up with as a solution to this problem? Is hands-on. So I think that all of our students would agree they love the opportunity to get their hands dirty, to get in there and create something and then test it and see if it works. And if it doesn't, that's okay. You know, we just start again. And then allowing students to follow their passions. So again, knowledge of students. What are the students interested in? What is the student's knowledge base that they can bring to the table as a solution to this problem? And then when they're working in a group, how can they collaborate? How can they bring their ideas together to produce a solution that's better than one they could have come up with on their own? And then finally, learning by doing, learning in context and focusing on the student. So those being three of the main ideas behind problem-based learning. And you also heard in the video this idea of building social and communication skills. And I know that's something that I often see in my students, not only the ability to come up with a solution, but the ability to be able to convey that solution to others, and perhaps, as in a pitch, sell someone on their ideas, sell someone on their solution. And then the idea of taking the content knowledge that we teach in our classrooms and transferring those to practical solutions instead of this silo. You know, I teach upper level math, so this silo of theoretical math, rather looking at it as how it is a solution, how math supports solutions to problems. So those are just some things that we have seen and that we believe are reasons that design challenges are important. And again, you know, connecting the student to the community, and that it is student-centered. And this would be a good time too to break for a moment and allow any of you to share what you've seen in terms of student benefit from design challenges being implemented in your district or in your school or in your classroom.
Well, this is Cindy from Toledo, and I can chat a little bit. So there's a lot of connections you can make to content in addition to the science and engineering. There's a lot of literacy things you do when the students have to come up with a 2-month-long project that they've been working on for such a long amount of time and all that rigor and put it into a 90-second pitch. That's really good practicing their summarizing skills. And it's also just really validating for kids when they work with a community partner, when they're presenting, you know, first of all to a community partner and they get some feedback and then they can go in and do some redesign. It's really validating for him. And also it's a competition. So at the end, once they have that feedback from the judges and, you know, we're getting our green energy machine real soon and they're super excited to be getting that. So just, it's very validating for kids.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else have any observation of student benefits they've seen through implementation of Design Challenge? I feel like today we have so many experts in the room, and I appreciate your sharing of thoughts and perspectives and observations that you all have had.
I think this is Jen. I think even just seeing how different academic areas can connect and work together, even just seeing their teachers taking on this design challenge almost sends a very clear message to the students about how things actually work in the real world. That, you know, communication is a part of everything, as Cynthia said. You know, I think that can be really powerful for students to start seeing the interconnectedness of, you know, in the project that my students are doing, the government teacher is involved. And so there's going to be a lot of connection between math and government class. And that's going to be really interesting to hear about.
That's very exciting. Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone else have anything that they would like to share?
Hi, Carol. This is Mary.
Hi.
I really love the creative aspect of all of a design challenge. You have those students who toe the line, who do exactly what they're told to do. Yet when they're put into a design challenge scenario, all of a sudden they are, you know, guts to glory, rubber to the road. They do everything they can that isn't what would be expected of them in a normal situation. And they're creative and they think outside the box naturally. I think that's the greatest thing that I like about Design Challenge in this particular aspect.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And many of the things that I have heard you all say, we're going to see in the what students are saying, which is the next slide. So in talking, repeated animation. In talking to students about Design Challenge, this is some of the feedback that we received from them. So again, I'll give you guys a couple of moments to just read through what students are saying. So when we were receiving this feedback from students and thinking about how students do benefit from the design challenge, I was really interested to see all the responses that we did get. But you know, the common theme here is, of course, that open-ended idea that they can listen to others for solutions and then bring them together to produce a solution that's better than their own. That the constraints are not so tight that they can't just be creative, and that the learning happens. That the middle one there, you know, that, or the one on the left, that they remember things better when their hands are on the solution and when the solution is their own, and when they're motivated to find what they need to know. So I think that was all very exciting feedback when we were talking with students. So just sort of looking back, you know, we've talked about what design challenges look like now, how teachers benefit, how students benefit, but then looking at the history of problem-based learning and design challenges in general, really, you know, in doing some of the research, we've learned that way back in ancient Greece, this idea of problems being solved through creativity was certainly being fostered. But most recently, John Dewey, the philosopher and psychologist, fostered this idea that education should be based in experience and then in reflection of that experience. And that's certainly what our design challenge are based in. Medical schools then, both McMaster in Canada and Case Western Reserve, started this idea of self-directed learning, and then bridging that gap between complex subject matter and practical application, which to me is just the statement of what our design challenges are. And then finally, present day, that we are implementing design challenges in classrooms K through 12, and I think pre-K through 12, and really pre-K through graduate school. So thinking of this as a new way of teaching and thinking of this as giving students the opportunity to have a new way of learning. So with that in mind, thinking about the big idea of Design Challenge, we're now going to move on to specifically this year's OSLN Design Challenge.
All right, so hopefully you've seen this prompt before. Hopefully this isn't the first time that you're seeing it, but if it is, let's just go ahead and read that and think about that. How can you improve your school, community, or world by reimagining an existing physical space, system, product, or service so that it is more equitable, accessible, or efficient? The first time that I saw the design challenge, this design challenge question from OSLN, I was pretty overwhelmed at the breadth and space of it. It's huge, right? It's absolutely massive. So one of the things that we did to break it down is we had a summer bridge program at Metro, and we did a 1-week, very condensed design challenge with this same question in mind, but just focusing on our school. So how could we improve an existing physical space, system, or product or service within our school to make it more equitable, accessible, or efficient? So if you're overwhelmed by the sort of like the size of this design challenge question, it might be helpful for you to think about it in terms of something smaller, or sort of like limiting it in some way so that you can know how or where to take that first step. We also want to give you all some resources that Carol and I have been using to construct the design challenge for Metro. Now, Metro might be a little bit different from your schools in that this is school-wide across all grades. And so it's something that all teachers take part in. It's something that is that's very, very universal. So what Carol and I have done over the course of the past few months is collected resources for different teachers, regardless of content area, that they can use within their classroom to connect their content to the design challenge. So a good first place to start is the OSLN website that talks about what is infrastructure and how can we utilize that. Yeah, absolutely, Brian. I'll put these in the chat. As I bring up each one, I'll just put it in the chat so you can have it there. So this goes over the definition of what is infrastructure and how does design impact infrastructure. It's a great place to start, not only for us teachers getting a sense of like, what is this? What are we actually talking about when we're talking about infrastructure? But it's actually a great place for students to go as well, a sort of resource for building for students to utilize as well, especially if you're teaching more in the upper levels like middle school or high school. Another really big picture resource that we found to be really helpful is going back to the 17 global goals. This is part of the United Nations, and they have a lot of resources to a lot of different grade levels. So everything from elementary all the way up to high school level on these different 17 global goals. And the one that is really related to this design challenge is global goal number 9. Let me go ahead and put this resource in the chat really quickly. So if you go ahead and click on that view goal, it actually is very specific in the targets for the goal, for these goals. And these global goals are put on by the United Nations, and they're the target year for attaining these goals is 2030. So as it's getting closer and closer, the priority and the pressure to attain these goals is mounting. So this is a really, really helpful resource for identifying or sort of narrowing down for your students what specific target areas of infrastructure you want to tackle with them, or they want to tackle on themselves. So really helpful resource there. And again, that's coming at it from a pretty global perspective. The final resource that I want to share with you is the ASCE report card. The ASCE stands for American Society of Civil Engineers. And every year they come up with a report card for America's infrastructure. This year, America's infrastructure scored a C-. And that's, you still might be asking like, well, what exactly does that mean? So what we found to be the most helpful is they break it down by state as well. So if you scroll down all the way to state, you can actually zoom in on your state. So Brian, I know that you're way out here in Arizona, but for the rest of us, I think we're sort of focused here in Ohio. So you can go ahead and click on the state report card, and it will break down exactly the grades for each of the different aspects of infrastructure that students can focus on. So what Carol and I have done is have sort of put these resources together for teachers in each of the we've broken down these categories into, or sort of lumped down these categories into larger areas. Like we have one for water, we have one for transportation and mobility. We've broken down these categories for students to utilize, so that when students express something they're interested in focusing on, there's a number of resources there for them to more quickly identify a problem that they want to address. So again, these are like really helpful resources and places to start for that empathize and noticing stage when students are just starting to get a grasp of what problem they want to identify and address. Brian, were you asking, now that I'm thinking about it, were you asking for these 3 resources here, or were you asking for the document that Carol and I have been compiling other resources in?
No, those 3, just because it was a text in there as opposed to a link. I have no idea where to go find it. So
got it.
That was perfect. Thank you, Noah.
Sure thing. And then next week we're really going to get into it may come across as a little bit of like a resource dump, because we're going to provide a lot of resources for you to utilize within the classroom for the different stages of design-based thinking. So yeah, Liz, that's a great observation as well. And Carol was talking earlier about connecting with community members to get involved, and that's it's so great if the whole school or a whole grade level is involved with the design challenge, because then there's this I don't know, there's a sense of like excitement and interest when everyone in the whole school, or at least a grade level, is working towards that, and getting in those local leaders and community members to talk about the impact and the significance is really important. Carol, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
I was just going, I was going to comment on the community leaders and then maybe a few things. But in terms of the community leaders, we typically leverage community leaders on our Hook Day, the day that we introduce. But some of the logistics of that are going to be covered in future sessions. But starting to brainstorm now about community leaders who you think would be valuable to come in and talk to students about their expertise in any particular area of infrastructure. At the elementary level, probably focusing in on one idea, and perhaps it's a system that is occurring in your school. Noah and I had talked earlier in the summer about correcting something or solving some problems at Metro surrounding student pickup. The car line when parents come to pick up students. And that certainly is a design challenge that happens in the very small community of our school. At the elementary level, most teachers approach things on that smaller scale. So thinking about community leaders that can come in and help you work out the logistics or share their expertise on areas like that. We are currently in the throes of planning our Hook Day for Metro. And so we haven't identified the community leaders, but we'll certainly share that with you, who we see as valuable speakers for motivating students. And then we often, as I mentioned earlier, try to find community leaders who would also come in and support students as they build prototypes and as they test them and as they talk through solutions. Just with that voice of knowledge from the industry, from the community. And then, back to the ASCE report card, that's one of the first things that we'll share with the students. And I think that'll be valuable to all of you, is really looking at where we are, where are we? Where do the problems exist? Because that is going to be a component of the design challenge, identifying the problem. Here's the situation, here's infrastructure, but where are the problems? And many students may not be aware of that, given their age. They may not know that our hazardous waste we're earning a D- in that. So really taking some time to look at that, to look at data, and to leverage that toward a solution, I think is really important.
Yeah, another resource that I put in the chat is we recently MORPIC, which is the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission. They're sort of in charge of budgeting for the infrastructure for the Mid-Ohio region. And they were willing to come in and talk to our teachers about the specifics of infrastructure and things like that. And so they might be a great resource as well. I think they have lots of programs to come into schools and talk about what they do there. So that could be a fantastic resource.
Yes, and if the geography for where you're located and their schedule doesn't work, they said they would also be happy to do Zoom meetings with classes, with teachers, with anyone who would like to talk with them about things that are happening in the state already.
Yes, and this is Zach Ames from OSLN, just kind of hopping in here. So in the past, we've looked to have larger scale partners that are more subject matter experts. But in years past, we've run into issues where they're much larger and teachers can't really get a grasp on the workload that they have because they're either statewide or really just unable to connect at the school level. So we really like to push the idea of engagement from a school level and coming from you guys. If you are wanting to reach out and use the OSLN name and our design challenge name within that reach out, that allows us to kind of connect with them and also provide some lens to that business to have us kind of reach out to them. But we really like that to come from you, just so it's something that we know you're interested in and we know you can kind of make that localized impact with.
All right, now transitioning to, I know that both Carol and I have done a lot of talking, and we'd really like for you all to be able to meet with each other and sort of get thinking about ideas for what this design challenge could look like in your in your school. So we're going to spend the next bit of time, probably I don't know, about 15 minutes or so in breakout rooms, and we're gonna divide up into breakout rooms based on grade level. Again, I'm not exactly sure what this will look like as far as how many. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm thinking, since we have a smaller group today, I think maybe just staying in the main room and kind of going through the same processes as one large group could be helpful. That way we can kind of share perspectives from across grade bands, and then hopefully individuals that are wanting to kind of narrow down will be able to come in future weeks for further discussion on kind of grade specific information. But I think maybe keeping it as one large group today would be helpful.
Okay.
That's fine. Yeah, it's the demographic is a little different than what we anticipated. So I think, as I said earlier, I think we have many experts in the room, and just continuing to share out ideas and thoughts and plans will be great. So maybe we should take just a few moments and be a little bit reflective. So you've heard a little bit about the big picture of what a design challenge is, and you all have experience to bring to the table with that as well. And then you heard from Noah about what the OSLN Design Challenge for this school year is. And again, many of you probably have already enrolled in that or have put some thought into this idea of improving infrastructure in your community. So maybe if we just take about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes, and you can jot down some ideas about how a design challenge could look in your classroom. So, and if you're not a classroom teacher, in the classroom of the teachers you support, or perhaps in the building that you support, or perhaps in the district that you support. So if you want to take a couple of moments and just reflect on your community and the infrastructure in your community, and jot down some ideas. How could a design challenge look for you? So take about 1 more minute to brainstorm, to write down some ideas about how this design challenge could look in your role.
Hey, Cynthia, is that a question for us? Or is that a question for what other schools are doing? I can most certainly talk about what Metro's doing, but I didn't want to jump in if it was for everyone.
Yeah, and I can kind of speak from the OSLN lens as well, if needed.
Yeah, Zach, that's kind of what I was thinking from the overall OSLN, when those dates will be.
Perfect. Yes, so for this year's challenge, our initial timeline is to kind of stick with our consistent timeline for the last few years. So basically, after this kind of welcome week, these PDs, it's free reign to all the schools that are participating, kind of going through mid-August or mid-April to when you can host your school showcases or have your pitch challenge submissions ready to go. Other than that, it's kind of at your own pace, at your own speed. No real set hard and fast deadlines. There will be occasional touch bases with myself just to make sure that you're kind of on pace to kind of meet those deadlines closer to the middle of the next semester, basically. Oh, and then the statewide competition will be held in mid-May. Logistics are still being worked out for that.
And then at Metro, we will be launching in January with our competition at the end of April. And then the winning team will have time to prepare for the state competition in May. That's typically been a schedule for us here at Metro, is to establish mini design challenges in classrooms in the fall to get the kids used to that idea of collaboration and coming together to form solutions to small design problems before we implement the large school-wide design challenge in the spring. And no, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else about Metro.
No, I was just that was the timeline I was gonna go. Yep.
Yeah. So our original plan, thinking we were going to have mostly classroom teachers, was to break out into grade level breakout rooms and begin to share those ideas that you came up with on reflection of both design challenges in general and the OSLN design prompt for this year. But again, given the fact that we're a small group and we're largely not classroom teachers as much as teachers who are, or people who are supporting teachers, maybe it makes more sense just to stay together and to share the ideas that you came up with on reflection during that time, that the ways that you see a design challenges happening in your school. So if we could take maybe about 5 to 8 minutes to share that out before we close for today.
And I see that we have some discussion in the chat regarding kind of that general timeline of if you finish early, what's going to happen, what's kind of going there. I think those ideas of additional showcases to kind of keep kids fresh, we really like to them to present in front of like an audience of their peers before they come to either a school showcase or a state showcase. So kind of having classroom repetition is something we've seen in the past that has really helped students get comfortable with the content that they're looking to present on.
One thing that we have done in the past when the competitions have been widely spaced is to continue that work with community partners. So once we've determined a winning team at the school level, we bring the community partners in again to help the students define and work on their presentation skills, maybe add a little bit more meat to their solution. But just kind of continuing that relationship with the community partners is a great way to keep it fresh for the team that's going to go to state competition. One of the things that we'll share with you coming up are the rubrics that we use. And so the rubrics are generally our way of judging. And we bring in, and again, these are all things you're going to hear about later, but since the question prompted, we judge, the teachers sometimes are judges for the school-wide challenge. But we also bring in the community leaders, and we bring in some of our OSU tutors to help judge the design challenge. We bring in the community leaders. We bring in some parents too, who have expertise in different areas. And again, all the competition and all the winning is judged against the rubric, which will be shared with you later, or at least some of the rubrics we've used in the past.
Yes, and we've kind of based our information and our shared knowledge with those rubrics that have been shared previously with schools that participated in the past. It's also quite flexible. So if you have a school that has kind of a showcase where students kind of bounce around and look at other students' work, you can have those students kind of grade just kind of who did the best and then kind of select based on that. It's basically whatever the school thinks that the best whatever the school thinks the best student group to represent their school is to come to that state showcase. So it's fairly flexible, but the rubrics do help quite a bit.
Yeah, we found it helpful to have like multiple tiers of evaluating, because they're working in groups of usually 3 to 5. And so it can be overwhelming to try to get enough judges to evaluate that many. So we try to narrow it down based on like teachers first, and then from there transition maybe the top 10 or 15 to community leaders.
Can you all talk a little bit about so you're doing all school implementation and across all levels, right? All teachers. How do you get your teachers collaborating with one another as they think, I think about that question about how does it fit into my curriculum, right? And what are some of the effective ways you've seen? And if this is one of the future sessions, then I'm sorry, just tell me, wait until this day. But what have been some of the effective strategies you've found to get all of your teachers collaborating as they think about how to bring in all the disciplines, especially, knowing some students in high school especially are going to different math classes or different, so they might not be all the same level.
Do you want to start on that one, Noah, and then I'll chime in?
Sure. I sort of hinted at it earlier with that sort of resource document that Carol and I, and then some of the middle school teachers have been putting together as well. But we break it down by content area or the direction that we're going for this year is to break it down by content area. And then each content area takes a specific part of the design of design-based thinking, which is that's what we're going to get into next week. But let's say the social studies might take the empathy or notice element of design thinking, so they're tackling that, and we have it even organized so that that's the first 2 weeks of design challenge, and then the same students might also be taking science, and they're hitting the prototyping stage later on in the design challenge. So it's based on what categories of the design challenge fit most strongly with the content areas.
Yes, and if I could just add a few things. First of all, we will talk more about how content areas come together. But for now, within our department, so Noah, as Noah said, we took each department at Metro and parsed a different part of the design challenge to that department. Now, we as a math department will work collaboratively to look at our standards and see how they fit into that piece of the design challenge. So we spend, we're lucky enough this year to have common planning time for all the math teachers. So we do spend a lot of time talking about lessons that we'll implement in the classroom, that will be, we're a mastery school, so it will be mastery assignments that we'll implement at our classroom level that they will then take to the design challenge to contribute to their group solution. Sure, and more to come. So we've talked a little bit about different ideas that you all came up with. And, you know, we are sort of at that point where we can ask a few more questions before you all fill out the feedback form for today. And we sign off. Just to let you know, our next session is the pedagogy of the design challenge. So like Noah said, it's going to kind of be a resource dump where, you know, we have all these big ideas about what a design challenge is. You now know the logistics or the main problem statement for the OSLN Design Challenge. But now, how do you do it? How do we implement this in our classrooms? How do you support teachers to make this happen? And so that's what we'll talk about next week. But are there any other questions that you all have? You will in the feedback form have the opportunity to ask for things, to tell us, oh, I really want to know more about this, or you know, anything else that you need. So that kind of feedback will be in the feedback form. But in general, right now, are there any questions that you would like to ask?
This is Jen. I'm just curious to know how folks, and this doesn't have to be answered today, are going to kick this off with students. I'm just curious to see what that might look like at the different grade levels. We are like maybe rushing a bit to kick ours off next week because our students are only in government class until mid-December. So we're jumping in. And so I'm helping the teachers come up with some ideas. And actually one of them was one that you said, the school pickup this year in the parking lot is so disastrous. It's just almost funny if it weren't scary. And so we were actually thinking, since our students are actually going to be focusing mostly on systems because of the focus that the government teacher wants to bring to it, we were actually thinking of doing like a mini design challenge with, because the students all know it's a mess, and just having that be like literally like a one-day design challenge, just to like talk about that and talk about the infrastructure in the parking lot and just do like a quick dive. So I'm just curious about other ways that folks are thinking about starting to kick theirs off. So if you don't have ideas today, that's cool, but it's something I'm thinking a lot about.
First, I'd like to say I love that idea. I did something very similar. I taught geometry a couple of years ago. And so we used geometry, you know, to come up with a different configuration for the school pickup line. So, you know, sky's the limit on that. And then what kind, you know, you're talking about government classes, what kind of regulations do you have to work around, you know, in terms of public traffic and things like that. But yeah, I'd love to hear from other people who have ideas about launching their design challenge. Jen, what day are you launching?
Good question.
Okay.
We're about to go on fall break, which makes it even better. So the teacher said Tuesday. He's the kind of teacher that will stay up the night before and play it like all night and plan the whole thing. But I'm going to try to advise him to wait till Wednesday so that everybody can be on board. So we'll see.
Oh, Jennifer, I like your idea. So at the elementary level, you're planning to have third graders create a Flipgrid question and pose it to the teachers. Oh, great. Yeah. Right. So, you know, with this idea of a design challenge being very student-led, that sounds like a really great way to introduce that idea of a student-led solution. The students interview the teachers.
I'll pipe in here. I'm Margot. I teach junior high, 7th and 8th graders. So I'm thinking, I haven't really actually thought a whole lot about this, but for about 5 minutes I did today. So my first feeling is, oh my gosh, there's so many possibilities to how to deal with this question. There's so many different things out there. I'd really like to get some community partners and some experts into my classroom, some different type of engineers, civil engineers, electrical, mechanical, all these different people to talk to the kids about, you know, different things that they could do or different possibilities. Just kind of hear some things from the experts on what they see out there are some things that we can improve on. So just to kind of get the kids thinking, and, you know, and I kind of like them to come up with the answers. I really like when the students do some brainstorming and they come up with solutions and they can talk about it with their classmates. So, you know, I don't have an end game like particular idea. I'd really like the students to take it. But I'd like to give them some information. And part of the whole, you know, let's research this problem, part of that is bringing in those experts and people who might have other ideas that the students haven't thought about.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking on that, an idea that I've been thinking about from kind of the overarching level that probably would be beneficial for kind of upper grades and students that are kind of looking into workforce development is maybe having some type of like job fair where a collection of different professionals or things like that are brought in to engage with the students, because our broad idea of infrastructure also kind of pertains to systems, and there aren't really a whole lot of professions that don't have to address systems at some point along the way. So even just kind of creating that connection point, as Margot was saying, could be incredibly valuable just to get those students' brains kind of moving in a direction. So if there's something that you host locally some of the time, if not, you can kind of bring in community partners, either virtual or in person, either would work fantastic.
That's great. And that's probably a good place to wrap up. It sounds like we're all sort of brainstorming this idea of how the design challenge is going to look at your building or in your classroom. Zach, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Oh, I see you. Zach has posted the feedback form. Yeah. Thank you. And again, thank you all for being here today. This was really a great opportunity to hear from you and for you to hear from us and to sort of create this bigger group of creating successful design challenges. So thank you again for being here. You all sound very excited about Design Challenge, as are we. So that's awesome.
Yes, thank you, Carol, Noah, for a great kind of kickoff and introduction to what a design challenge is. Thanks to everybody for coming in and participating today. I know we had a small group, but we had a mighty group, lots of great ideas, lots of great sharing. So yeah, I posted the feedback form in the chat. Just a few simple questions to collect your feedback from the day and kind of collect any information that you'd like to see more of, whether or not in our next 3 sessions, if not offline with Carol, Noah, and myself. So please feel free to fill that out at your earliest convenience. That'll help us kind of plan for next week's session as well. And yeah, without any further ado, we'll go ahead and end today's session. Thank you all so much again for your participation and look forward to touching base with some of you next week.
Yes, thanks all for being here. I know it's hard taking time out of your day as teachers, so thank you.
Have a great week.